It is time for Real News with Brian Ross. Brian joins us on a Thursday morning, and we talk a little bit about the news that is out and about. Good morning there, Brian.
Good morning. What a forecast.
Yes. makes you want to. I'm definitely going to make sure my electricity is going to stay. I have an electric fireplace. I don't have a gas fireplace. I guess I should put one in, but I don't. But anyway, I have to bring something up and ask you a question because you are a seasoned investigative reporter. And I have, on my personal Facebook page, I have banned any talk about the former president or any of his actions or any of his minions or anything like that. I will get into discussions on different policies with people, but not on my Facebook page. But when I look at the news in general for the Republican Party, Brian, like I said, I'm going to ask you this question as an investigative reporter. I'm shocked. It seems like the Republican Party is putting the party on the line in its faith in Donald Trump being able to get people elected and to get himself reelected in 4 years. They have completely acquiesced. Of course, the leader of the House has gone down to meet with him. They are not saying anything about the Congressperson Marjorie Taylor Greene and her call a while ago for the assassination of top Democrats. It appears that the party is totally co-opted, and I don't know what any moderate in the Republican Party is going to do. They're just maybe you can explain. You investigate organizations like QAnon.
Well, yes, of course, and you cite the precise examples. Let's throw in the warning from the Department of Homeland Security. The country faces a real threat of violence from domestic terror groups. I've never seen anything quite like that in all my years, a warning about domestic groups being potentially violent and actually becoming terrorist groups. But you're right, and the Republican Party's efforts to distance themselves are very slim. The one thing they have done is they've speedily confirmed most of President Biden's cabinet. They have not tried to block that at all. And it looked to me like efforts that McConnell was leading to down the road of impeachment faltered, that he could not get his people to go along with it. As you know, they barely got the votes to proceed with the impeachment, past the constitutional barrier. They did get those. Again, politics is local. They're all looking at their followers, and they're afraid of Mr. Trump.
You know, what's interesting to look at, and I'm no politician. I followed politics really basically since Bobby Kennedy ran for president when I was in high school. I look at this. You're going to back a man, and you're going to back QAnon and very, very, very radical views. Talk about progressive being radical. Other radical views. You're going to back that. Here's what I don't understand what they say. Their man polled 70 million plus votes. That's fine. Joe Biden, and I like Joe Biden. Don't get me wrong. I don't like everything that he proposes, but I like Joe Biden. I think he's a good, decent man. I think he's going to be a decent president. But Joe Biden polls 77 plus million votes, far more than Barack Obama. For the basic reason, those 77 plus million people did not like Donald Trump. You have to look at that. If you're a real party member, you have to look at that and say, okay, this election wasn't stolen. There's some upset in the force that caused so many more people to vote against us. And I just don't see that coming from the Republican Party. And yes, they might win congressional elections. And yes, I don't think they'll be able to keep holding on to the Senate. That's a whole different thing than congressional races. But the writing is on the wall. I mean, this is not...
Or is it? You know, there are conservative writers and columnists who feel that the Democrats don't really want to impeach or actually remove Donald Trump from office or ban him from running again, that they prefer to have a weakened Donald Trump as a potential candidate, because from the Republican Party point of view, from other candidates who generally would be, if they were going to run for president in 4 years, starting their campaigns really right now, organizing staff and fundraising, they're frozen in place because of Trump. Nobody can move to make their own efforts to try to run for president. It leaves the Republican Party in a bit of a mess with Trump in limbo. symbol like that. And there are many conservative writers who think that's exactly what the Democrats like.
It's a wild situation. Also, with your cap as an investigative reporter, let's go to COVID-19 and Joe Biden. I think is doing all the right steps, being very out front, letting the science speak for itself. But this is, once again, as an investigative reporter, you look around and you see there's no stockpile. There appeared to be no coherent strategy once they purchased originally.
Stunning.
There just was no long-range strategy at all about the need for more vaccines.
Absolutely amazing. I think what it would be if Mr. Trump had been reelected. We're seeing the Biden team trying to pull together actually federal guidelines and the federal programs, being very honest about the fact that there are going to be shortfalls, there are going to be dark days ahead. But I do want to point out, the New York Times reporting this morning, a steep 35% decline in new cases, the sharpest sustained decline they've seen yet of cases with, here we have Mr. Biden now sort of praising scientists, not flouting science, basing decisions based on science. People are actually getting the message about masks. Amazingly, if we look back in history, that became a political issue, that wearing a mask or not was some sign of what kind of a person you were. Yes, I think you see the Biden team now, with regular briefings on the air. They're very transparent, very open. But still, the proof will be, can they make it all happen? Can they pull it together? And I think that Mr. Biden's team is pulling all the levers available to them to make that happen in terms of getting the vaccine out and getting it into people's arms.
And they're also being very open and transparent about errors and what's going on. They're not hiding behind anything. The daily press briefings are not smooth sailing and the press just falling all over the new press speaker. But they are releasing information. The press is able to go and ask questions, not only of the president but of the scientists that he's put on that commission. It's a whole different look into what our government was, and I think we forgot what it was.
I know, and every time I watch one of those briefings, it just reminds me of what we went through in the last 4 years, how crazy that was, and how how normal it now seems. We return to an idea of what is normal, and sort of ever to make the Trump era normal. It fails because this is normal. It's not always exciting, and I suspect it won't be always kind of the ratings that the cable news networks like. But right now we're seeing competence and efficiency and professionalism and true dedication. You don't see any backbiting from the Biden administration people. There are no leaks. It's all very well organized. The president comes out and speaks, not long, but briefly and effectively, and then his people speak, scientists speak, Dr. Fauci speaks. It's refreshing.
And one other thing that you mentioned that I wanted to bring up, and you had mentioned about the Republicans approving Biden. Well, some Republicans have threatened to filibuster on the nomination for the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, and other Republicans now are going to force a vote to end that possible filibuster.
Right, exactly. Well, Mr. Mayorkas is somebody who I reported on extensively in the last era of the last administration, the Obama administration. I don't think he was that great he was when he was Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security, but he is their choice now, and I think the importance they're trying to raise is that, and he was accused then of sort of giving favoritism to Democrats and Republicans in a certain process called the EB-5 program. Nevertheless, there's a push to get him in because at this point, full leadership, full confirmation is needed. And that question of the filibuster is something we're going to hear a lot about. We're going to hear a lot about it, and the Democrats don't have the votes to stop it. They really don't. There are 2 or 3 Democrats, Manchin and a couple others, who say, "I believe in the filibuster." I go back and forth on the filibuster. What we're talking about, folks, in case you don't know, you need
if you end the filibuster rule, you're basically saying 51 to 49, or one vote can carry everything. No longer 2/3 needed or anything like that.
A simple majority. With a filibuster, you need 60 votes to end the filibuster, to cut it off. That means anything that's going to have a chance of being passed on the floor of the Senate will require 60 votes, not 51, as you say. And that has been used for good and for ill over the years. It has blocked bad things and has blocked good things. It's a question. It's part of the Senate tradition, and I think there are too many traditionalists who like to keep it. They really don't want to change it. And I think that even the president has been wavering on whether that should be ended.
Well, I look at it every day, and I have a different outlook on it every day, because there are positives, there are negatives, but sooner or later a breaking point's going to come, and we'll have to see what happens when that breaking point is going to come.
But generally it's whose ox is being gored. If the minority party benefits from the filibuster, they always do. They can block a lot of things, and the argument is that by having that requirement, you essentially get a piece of legislation that has support from both sides. It has to have support from both sides. But as you say, if the Republicans and Mitch McConnell plan to just obstruct everything, then I think the Democrats have to look at it in a different way.
Absolutely. Well, it's always it's an amazing time we live through, Brian.
And just think, Marshall, we mentioned the word Trump twice now.
Yeah, that's it. And that we didn't even talk about the office of the former president. But that's for a different day.
Yeah.
All right, Brian. We'll speak to you next week.
Thank you. Take care. Good to hear.
Take care. Brian Ross and Real News here on Robin Hood Radio. And, of course, you can hear Brian on demand, robinhoodradio.com. Click on demand, click on Real News with Brian Ross.